As American as anyone else? Really, Mehdi? Really, Mr. Hassan? You're as American as anyone? You're a Muslim who was born in the UK, came to this country less than 10 years ago.
Point. Does anybody seriously want to keep a straight face and say America is just as much a Muslim country as a Christian country? Of course not.
I mean, what Michael just explained was maybe the most anti-un-American thing that I've ever heard. This claim that we are a Christian country. I mean, Michael, we are expressly not a Christian country.
What does it say on there? What does it say?
It says in God we trust, which was.
Does it say in Allah is our trust? Does it say?
I'm not going to enter into a whole theocratic debate with you, but God can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
It's answering the silly point that you just made.
Would you call any Middle Eastern? Okay, would you call any Middle Eastern countries Muslim countries? Because they have other religions in those countries. So are they Muslim? Are they Muslim countries?
All right, guys, so we've got this absolute war going on between Matt Walsh and Mehdi Hassan. And honestly, it's one of those moments where you can just see the clash of civilizations playing out in real time. Mehdi goes to Dearborn, which, by the way, is basically Little Beirut at this point, and says if Christians can ring church bells, Muslims should get to blast the call to prayer. And Matt Walsh goes absolutely nuclear on him. But here's where it gets really good. Michael Knowles jumps in. And watch what happens when he starts laying out actual history versus Mehdi's revisionist nonsense. And then Brian Tyler Cohen tries to do his thing, and it completely backfires. This is one of those debates where you can literally see someone getting destroyed in real time. Let's get into it.
Between Matt Walsh and Mehdi Hassan, we'll let Mehdi explain what he thinks it's about.
Now, what's really bothering him about me is that I said in a recent visit to Dearborn,
I think that if you can play church bells, you can pray the call to prayer.
Isn't it okay for Muslim Americans to broadcast a call to prayer? I mean, let me add right now, within reason, of course, and in accordance with all local sound and noise ordinances. But Matt went nuts and said Christianity built this country. Islam did not at all in even the slightest way. That's why we can have our church bells. To which I responded, 1 in 3 of the slaves who built this country were Muslims. They were here long before the Walsh family arrived. You'd know that if you'd studied history, but I know MAGA has an issue with studying. To which Matt responded with a 13-minute video in which he got really mad, but was unable to rebut the 2 central points that I made.
Well, let's see a little bit of Matt Walsh's response to Mehdi.
You're as American as anyone else? Really, Mehdi? Really, Mr. Hassan? You're as American as anyone? You're a Muslim who was born in the UK, came to this country less than 10 years ago in your mid-30s to work for Al Jazeera. Okay, is there anyone who seriously thinks that Mehdi Hassan is American at all, much less as American as anyone else?
So Michael, an interesting point here. Obviously, America remains a Christian-dominated country. So the sound of, church bells ringing to encourage people to come to a Christian place of worship would be very familiar up and down the country. Is there anything intrinsically wrong with a call to prayer for the many millions of Muslims that live in America?
Well, of course, and this is no disrespect to Muslims, but the call to prayer, like all religion really, is a public kind of thing. It changes communities, it sets standards and norms in communities, and so the question then becomes, what kind of communities do we have? What kind of communities are really American? And the fact is, we're a Christian country. I know that Mehdi Hassan was accusing Walsh's family of showing up late, but mine was here about as early as it could be on the Mayflower, and those were zealous Christian pilgrims. They called themselves pilgrims. And so it's a Christian country. Muslims basically did not exist in America until the latter part of the 20th century, after the major immigration reform in Hart-Celler. Mehdi makes a good point that a lot of the slaves who arrived here were Muslim because they were enslaved by Muslim slavers in Africa. But they almost all converted to Christianity. Our only real experience in America of Islam early on was the First Barbary War, when more Muslim slavers kept stealing our sailors, and ultimately we resolved that issue, but it took a little while into the early 19th century. So on the historical point, does anybody seriously want to keep a straight face and say America is just as much a Muslim country as a Christian country? Of course not. We've been very welcoming to Muslims, and in many ways Muslims are more grounded than secular leftists, but give me a break. It's totally preposterous, and there's nothing wrong with the people wanting to keep their religious traditions and the character of their country that's been around for 400 years.
All right, Brian, I did a bit of research into this because I wasn't even sure if it, at the moment, if it is permitted, right? So under freedom of religion, a call to prayer isn't banned from the US Constitution. However, local councils can decide on the use of loudspeakers to broadcast it, including prohibiting it during unsociable and decibel level. In 2023, Minneapolis became the first major US city to allow the announcement or adhan to be heard over speakers 5 times a day year-round. And in New York City, city guidelines announced in 2023 by Mayor Eric Adams clarified that mosques do not need a special permit to amplify the call to prayer on Fridays and sundown during the holy month of Ramadan. So it seems like there is a reasonable amount of flexibility already for the call to prayer. But I guess it's really about the principle. Michael arguing there that because America is so largely a Christian country, is it right that a minority, i.e. of Muslims, say 5 to 6 million Muslims, I think it is, in the population of America, maybe slightly more now, should they have a right to the call to prayer to be amplified or not?
If you're asking me if Muslims should have the right to practice their religion, I think that question is beyond easy to answer. It's right there in the First Amendment.
No, that wasn't the question.
It's right there. It's
that
right
wasn't
there in
the question. No, it's about whether they should be allowed to.
Religion.
No, specifically, whether they should be allowed to amplify the call to prayer in towns, cities, whatever, as they do obviously when you go to the Middle East, you hear it very loudly, quite deafening sometimes through a city. I've been in the Middle East a lot this year. So it's whether that should be permitted or not.
I think that if it's in accordance with local laws and there's a practicing people that want to practice their religion, then that's what America is. This idea, I mean, what Michael just explained was maybe the most anti-un-American thing that I've ever heard. This claim that we are a Christian country. I mean, Michael, we are expressly not a Christian country. In fact, we have a whole separation of church
Brian,
and state.
do you have any
right
U.S.
there in the
currency in your
Establishment Clause
pocket?
of the Constitution. Yes, I do.
Okay, so look, I need you guys to understand what just happened here because this is actually insane. Michael Knowles just gave a masterclass in how to handle revisionist history, and Brian Tyler Cohen is doing exactly what these people always do. He's trying to gaslight you about what America actually is. Let's break down Michael's point first because it's absolutely devastating. He brings up the Mayflower. His family came over on the Mayflower. These were Christian pilgrims, not secular humanists, not people fleeing religion. They were zealous Christians who explicitly built communities based on Christian values. That's not controversial, that's just history. And Mehdi Hassan trying to claim that 1 in 3 slaves were Muslim, so Muslims built this country? Dude, even if that stat is true, which is debatable, those slaves converted to Christianity, like almost all of them, because Christianity offered them hope and dignity and a path to freedom. The Muslim slavers who sold them sure didn't. And Michael brings up the Barbary Wars, which is our actual first real encounter with Islam as a nation. And guess what? Muslim pirates were enslaving American sailors. That's what we knew of Islam early on. We had to go to war to stop them from stealing our people. That's the historical reality. Now, watch what Brian does here. He completely ignores all of that and pivots to separation of church and state, like that means America isn't a Christian nation. This is the classic move. They take one phrase from one letter Jefferson wrote and pretend like the founding fathers wanted to erase Christianity from public life. That's not what separation of church and state means. It means the government can't establish an official state church like England had. It doesn't mean we pretend our entire legal system, our moral framework, our culture isn't built on Christian principles. Michael destroys him with the simplest questions. Is Christmas a federal holiday? Yes. Is Easter? Yes. What does our currency say? In God we trust. What does our national anthem reference? God. What did the founders constantly reference? Providence. Divine providence. God. They were Christians building a Christian nation with religious freedom, meaning you can practice other religions, but don't pretend this country wasn't built by and for Christians. And then Brian tries this thing where he's like, well, just because Christians are the majority doesn't make it a Christian nation. Like, what? Yes, it does. That's literally what it means. If 69% of the country is Christian, and all our founding documents and holidays and moral framework come from Christianity, that makes it a Christian nation. It doesn't mean Muslims can't practice Islam. Nobody's saying that. But stop trying to rewrite history and pretend like Islam had anything to do with building this country. I know you guys already see through this, but it's so important to understand the game they're playing. They want to take a country that was explicitly Christian, erase that history, and then act like you're the bigot for pointing out basic facts. And the thing is, Brian knows this. He's not stupid. He's just playing to his audience who wants to believe America is this blank slate that they can reshape into whatever progressive utopia they're imagining. Michael Knowles sees right through it, and that's why this exchange is so good. He's not letting them get away with it. Let me know in the comments what you think about this whole debate.
Currency in your pocket?
Of the Constitution. Yes, I do have currency in my pocket.
What's it say on there? What does it say?
It says in God we trust, which was.
Does it say in Allah is our trust? Does it say?
I'm not going to enter into a whole theocratic debate with you, but God can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
It's not theocratic. It's answering the silly point that you just made. We're a Christian country. Our founders said so. The men who built the country said so. It's in our national anthem, and it's on our money.
Having "In God We Trust" on our dollar bill does not mean that we are a Christian nation. We have the freedom of religion and the freedom from religion in this country. And the notion that because Christians view themselves as some persecuted minority or some persecuted majority in this country does not just mean automatically that this is a Christian country. I know that's a big. Hey,
Brian, is Christmas a federal holiday?
Yes.
It is. Is Easter a federal holiday?
Yes. You're not
kind of weird. But we're not a Christian country. Okay, I just wanted to check.
Well, hang on.
We're not a Christian country.
You're not making the point.
Let me jump in.
You're making a different
point. Let me jump in. Let me jump in. I've just checked while I've been listening to you guys. There are just under 5 million people identifying as Muslim in the United States of America out of a population of 340 million or so. There are 235 million people in the United States who identify as Christian, making up 69% of the adult population. I mean, that is, whatever way you look at it, Brian, that makes America a predominantly Christian country. I mean, there's no disputing the numbers.
Pointing out which religious group has a majority in a country does not make that country a Christian nation, especially at the expense of some other religion. So you can point to the fact that we have.
But would you call any Middle Eastern? Okay, would you call any Middle Eastern countries Muslim countries? Because they have other religions in those countries. So are they Muslim? Are they Muslim countries?
It depends what the country is and what their constitution says. I mean, our constitution expressly says that we are.
All right, so let's talk about what just happened here, because this is a perfect example of how these debates actually work. Michael Knowles absolutely demolished this entire argument. Like, it wasn't even close. He came in with actual history. The Mayflower, the Founding Fathers, the Barbary Wars, and just systematically destroyed Mehdi Hassan's revisionist nonsense. And Brian Tyler Cohen couldn't do anything except repeat talking points that don't even make sense. Here's the thing about the call to prayer debate. Nobody's saying Muslims can't practice their religion. That's not what this is about. What this is about is whether we're going to pretend that America is just as much a Muslim country as it is a Christian country. And the answer is no, it's not. 5 million Muslims versus 235 million Christians. The founders were Christians. The legal system is based on Christian principles. The culture is Christian. The holidays are Christian. That doesn't mean Muslims are second-class citizens. It just means don't try to rewrite history and act like Islam built this country. And Mehdi's whole argument about slaves being Muslim, even if we take that at face value, those slaves converted to Christianity because Christianity gave them hope and freedom and dignity. Islam didn't do that for them. The Muslim slavers in Africa sold them. That's the actual history. Michael brings that up, and Brian has no response except to hide behind separation of church and state. Like that erases 400 years of Christian dominance in every aspect of American life. It's embarrassing, honestly. And then when Michael starts hitting him with the simple questions, is Christmas a federal holiday? Is Easter a federal holiday? What does our money say? Brian just stammers and tries to move on because he knows he's losing. You can see it. The confidence drains out of him. Look, here's the bottom line. America is a Christian nation that allows religious freedom. That's the actual truth. You can be Muslim in America. You can be Jewish. You can be Hindu. Nobody's stopping you. But don't try to erase the Christian foundation of this country and act like we're all just interchangeable belief systems. We're not. Christianity built the West. Christianity built America. And people like Mehdi Hassan and Brian Tyler Cohen want to pretend that's not true, because it doesn't fit their multicultural fantasy. Michael Knowles gets it. Matt Walsh gets it. And I know you guys watching this get it too. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the call to prayer should be amplified in American cities? Or should we acknowledge that this is a Christian country with Christian traditions? Let me know. That's what we do here at MB. I'll see you in the next one. Stay sharp.